Hope you're doing well. If you could, maybe we'll give people a couple more minutes to join and sign up. Would you be able
Okay.
to play through a bit of the tune we're going to be learning today? And in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
chat,
yeah.
maybe people can, if they know it, say the name.
Yeah, let's see if anybody knows this tune. Oops, that was what it was. Anybody recognize it? It's a beautiful song called When Sunny Gets Blue. And it's not so obscure, but it's also not one that, gets worn out with, I think Autumn Leaves and Blue Bossa and all the things you are. And these tunes, they get used a lot to teach about standards and teach about improvisation. And I think that it's fine. They're wonderful. And yet it's a little bit tedious to always come back to the same tune. So I thought since today, what we're going to be doing is talking about strategies for learning a tune. Now, that means you don't know the tune before you start. So I thought I would pick something that was just a little bit off the beaten track so that you can experience the methodology that I'm suggesting in your own way. The chart that I'm looking at, I've played this song for years, but I'm looking at a chart right now because I want to be able to have something that's somewhat standardized. It's from the Real Book, the Real Book Volume 1. I think this chart that I'm looking at is one of the original Real Book charts, but I think that the newer versions, the new editions of the Real Book also include this tune, When Sunny Gets Blue. And what we're going to do today, I'll just warn everybody what we're going to do. It's guitar in your lap kind of stuff, so that's good. And I'm going to talk about at least the way I see helpful ways to learn and perhaps even memorize a standard tune that you might run into if you're going to learn tunes for a set somewhere or accompany a singer or just learning new tunes for your band to play or solo guitar versions or whatever. I want to touch on all the different aspects. So it's not just going to be a solo guitar arrangement class. We're going to do all the things you might want to do to really feel like you know a tune. Okay? And also talk about some of the pitfalls that I know I have fallen into over my time of learning songs, and that maybe you also have fallen into. It's very easy to make mistakes when you're learning based on how you used to learn when you were first learning. And so we're going to try and point out some of those pitfalls and maybe have some suggestions for fixing things, making a better plan for learning. So we're going to learn about how to learn the melody, how to learn the basic changes, how to understand the form, how to read the road map if there's a road map on the chart. Just a few little things like there's a coda at the end of this song that's different from it's like a third ending, I guess you could say. And what is that? And why does it live where it lives? And when do I go there? And all those kinds of things. Maybe we'll talk also about the bigger picture of learning a tune intervallically so you can transpose it easily, which I know that some of you may play with either yourself as a singer or other people as singers. And learning how to transpose, sometimes even very quickly on the fly, is a very helpful skill. So we're going to look into all of those kinds of things, and hopefully, Luke, what's our time frame today? Oh, Luke has turned off of
Oh,
turned
wait,
us. Oh,
wait.
there he is.
Is my camera? I'm
You
trying.
look like you're staring off into the middle distance with a very beautiful face.
Oh, well, I'll come back to this. The
Oh,
Mac,
there we are.
that trustworthy Mac
What's
cam.
our time frame today? It's 2 o'clock on the West Coast now. We go until around
Well,
3:30.
yeah. So what I think we'll do is we'll stay relatively within the realms of learning new tunes for that first 60 minutes because we've
Yes.
already had questions coming in on some other topics. So we'll keep it reined in on learning
Okay.
tunes,
Okay. Yeah. I'll make it as. I'll give you a tight 60.
and then we can do another 30 on general stuff. So I can save these
Okay.
questions on blowing over changes for then.
Very good. And we have an announcement today as well.
Yeah, I'll let you go for a little bit, and maybe I'll interrupt in about 10 minutes when I've got as many people here as possible
Okay. Good.
to drop some exciting news.
Okay. We're dropping exciting news. Doesn't that sound like TV or something? That's so cool. All
Yeah,
right. You think it's okay if I start?
yeah. Perfect. We're good.
By the way, for the gear lovers in the crowd, this is perhaps the most beautiful guitar in the world. This is a 1947 script logo ES350 with a single P90, not the double P90 one. It's got something like a little bit of a more cherry finish that year. This is the first year, and then it's really nice. This is the guitar that Barney Kessel started with before he started doing his modifications. So he had an either, according to Bruce Forman, 1946, which is 1 year before they officially started making this guitar in 47. So, but anyway, that's what you're listening to through a Princeton reverb amp. No smoke and mirrors or bells and whistles. Just a little bit of a good guitar, nice heavy strings, flesh on the fingers, and maybe a pick from time to time, and a Princeton reverb amplifier. Hopefully, it sounds good on your end. Very good. Okay. So today we're going to talk about this subject of how to learn a standard. I only see one page, but I'll get a general idea. Raise your hand if you think you've got an idea or a methodology that you usually use for learning a standard or a new tune of any kind. Okay? And then raise your hand if you think that your method is actually effective. Okay, yeah. A little bit of this, right? As soon as we add a human being to the problem, it becomes a little more nuanced than if we just say, okay, here's what you do, boom, 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 boom. That's what science tells us, Well, science doesn't always preside in my house. I'm kind of a hot mess, so I have to come up with actually ways that I test out that actually work for me, and then try and share them with other people. So take everything today in stride, because it might be different than what you've heard. It might be different than what you do. And there are all sorts of ideas about practicing and memorizing and appropriate learning and all that out there. And some of my ideas may differ from what you have learned or do, and that's okay. And if you have good ideas, you maybe pop them into the chat and share. So a couple of things. We're going to learn When Sunny Gets Blue, beautiful song. It's in the Real Book #1. It's by Fisher and Siegel, probably the lyricist and the music writer. It's got lovely words. It's a song that's sometimes done as a bossa nova. That kind of a feel. Or it could be done as a ballad. I've even heard it done as a medium swing. How about, just to get your ear on it and start the process that I recommend we do when we're first learning a tune, which is to listen to the tune played or sung by somebody that you really like. Or these days it's a lot easier to do this kind of research on YouTube. You can put together a playlist of 20 different versions and listen to them all over and over and over. Because one of the things that we need to remember about learning songs of this type is that unlike when we were 15 and we were listening to the songs that we heard on the radio sometimes 3 or 4 times a day, and then we would want to learn them, and they were already in our mind. We already kind of knew the sound of the songs because they were in the culture of the time. Like if you were going to try and learn a song by, I don't know, Bob Dylan or James Taylor or Supertramp or whatever era was when you were younger and listening to music all the time, you heard those songs over and over and over. But now someone comes along and says, well, we're going to learn this song When Sunny Gets Blue. And maybe you hadn't heard it very much. Maybe you've never heard it, because it's not a song that comes from, the 60s. It probably comes from the 50s. And most of us were probably not glued to a radio in the 50s. Maybe some of us are. I'm looking closely. I just had a birthday yesterday, so I've literally entered the thank you, literally entered the realm of the Medicare generation. So yeah, right. I know. Okay, my big question is Medicare Advantage or Medicare Supplemental? No, I'm just kidding. That's giving me such a headache right now. But we don't really get a chance unless you grow up in a household that had a good record collection, which I was kind of fortunate to do. We don't really hear songs of a previous era or whatever. Confirm your speaking language. Why is that being asked? I'm going to say my speaking language is English, and then maybe someone can use closed captioning to translate me. Okay.
Just a quick thing. Someone's really
Yes.
kindly shared the chart in the chat.
Okay.
For anyone watching on YouTube, if you go back, or maybe you didn't even go there in the first place. If you go to timlerch.com/livestream, you'll see the chart on that page as well. I've embedded it there. So if anyone can't see it in the chat or you're on YouTube,
Thank you.
timlerch.com/livestream.
Okay, so back on track. The first thing to learning a tune, if you have the opportunity. Now, if someone throws a tune in front of you, 5 minutes before the gig, you may not have this opportunity, but then you don't really have to learn it. You just have to be able to read the chart. We want to learn it so we can internalize it. We can carry it around in our hearts and our minds away from our instruments and deepen our appreciation for the tune. So the first thing is we listen to versions of it. So today's your chance to hear the foremost jazz whistler in the world play. That's a joke, by the way. Playing and whistling When Sunny Gets Blue. So sometimes the whistle takes a little while to warm up. And then it repeats. That's it. E minor day 7. I'll stop there. The bridge is a lovely thing, very similar, by the way, to the bridge of a simplified version of the bridge to Body and Soul. So now let's say you want to learn When Sunny Gets Blue, and you put a playlist together, and you've got 4 or 5 different versions that you like and that seem like they're not too crazy, not too extremely modified, sort of straightforward. Maybe even find an early recording of the song by the orchestra that first made a hit from it or something, and do a little research on where the tune comes from. Did it come from a show? What are the lyrics? Who's a good singer to sing it? Who's a good player to play it? And then swim in the tune as much as you can. I got to tell you, it's way easier to do this today than it was even just 30 years or 20 years ago, because we have this thing, YouTube, which, is basically ruining the lives of musicians, but making it possible to listen to a lot of different music at little or no cost and organize it and stuff. Okay, so we've familiarized ourselves with the tune. We can hum the tune away from our instrument. We can recognize the tune when it's being played, and then subliminally maybe we're hearing how the changes work against the melody and what the typical feel is, what a ballad feels like, or what those kinds of things. A lot of those things are happening subliminally behind the active listening of the melody or something. And then maybe a time at this point would be to, by ear, to try and pluck out the melody to the song along with a performance of the song. So if someone's singing it, just play along and sort of pluck out the melody. Use your ear first. And that's good for you anyway, regardless of whether it helps you learn the tune or not. It's really just good to use your ear in the learning process. I'm not such a stickler that says you must learn everything by ear and, real book charts are crap and I don't buy into that. I think it's all a great resource. This chart that's in the real book, if you play it like it's written, it sounds nice. It's correct as far as I can tell. The issue with correctness, though, is that some people learn the song and they think the way they learn it is the correct way. But it's really just the way they learned it. So if you listen to 9 different versions of the song, you might find that there's 9 different versions of the harmony or different expressions of the melody, So once you write something down, you kind of have to realize that it's just an idea. It's a starting point. It's a guide. Okay? But if you listen to the song and you get it in your bones and you can hum it and sing it, you will then begin to personalize it all by yourself. And when you personalize it, then that's just yet another rendition of a beautiful song. And that's kind of what we expect, at least in this world. Maybe not in, Bach cello suites or something where there's an idea about how it's supposed to be played perfectly. But in this world, we can interpret it our own way, especially if we've learned it in a solid way first. Then we can express it in our own way. Like when I whistled the melody, I didn't whistle how it was written on the page here. I just whistled it in my own way. It's close enough, but I think the way it's written is just a little stiff. So I personalize it because I'm a jazz musician. Okay, so then play along, try and learn the melody, get a sense of it. Maybe you can see, let's play along and see if we can hear what's going on with the changes. Oh, okay, that sounds pretty good. What key is it in? Oh, it's in the F, so that if it's in the key of F, the singer's singing in an F, maybe. And that might be the first thing to figure out, too, is what key is the thing in the performance. There's the 2, there's the 5. Okay, I'm comfortable with that. That's something I've seen before. And then, what's that? That's a new sound to me. I got to look into that. What's going on there? And then, and now we're back to familiar again. Do-do-dee-do-do, dee-dum. Okay? So find out what it is you can already perceive about the song instead of thinking that it's just this unknown thing. There may be a lot of parts of the song that you already are familiar with the sound of, like the bridge being similar to Body and Soul's bridge. If you know Body and Soul already, then you look at this bridge and you go, oh my gosh, it's very similar. That helps, right? I can look at it and say, it's a little different there and there, but mostly it's the same. So I kind of get a little bit of a leg up on the process. So after you've familiarized yourself with a song, played through it by ear, try and get it, find out what you do know and find out what you don't know in terms of what sounds you can get and which ones you can't get and you don't know and they're mysterious to you. And then maybe you can look at the chart, okay? And assuming that the song is in the same key as the performance, you might, without any recording going on, just play through the basic changes. And by basic changes, I mean, if it says G minor 7, that's pretty much a basic change. The next chord is C7 sus on the chart. Probably C7 is good enough, you know. I don't think the sus sound influences the melody or anything there. So that's just a 2 and a 5. And then same thing up a minor third to the 4 minor and flat 7 dominant. We'll talk more about these numbers in a second. Then finally to the 1, and then walking up the key. All these chord shapes are easy enough, should be well known to you. And then the B minor 7 flat 5, which I call sharp 4 minor 7 flat 5, turns to 4 minor to flat 7. We've seen that already in the song. It's just a briefness there. And then 1. Now here's a little non-diatonic thing, a little thing out of the key, which is A flat to D flat. And then finally we get to the 2 and the 5. Then this nice little B flat 7 on my way to the A minor and the D, which sends me back to the beginning of the song. Now, one of the things that we just noticed is the first ending on this song is A minor to D7, which in the key of F would be 3 to 6 dominant, right? And this is a situation that you should be aware of, and you can make note of, because it'll help you whenever you're learning a tune that starts on the 2 chord. Okay? When the tune starts on the 2 chord, like this one does, when sunny gets blue, all right, and then it goes someplace else. When we do the turnaround on the first ending, which is to send us back to the top, we can't play a 2-5 like we might do to a song that starts on 1. We have to play a 3-6 or something like it, because this song starts on the 2, right? And so just make a note of that, because that's something that if you understand the logic of something, it's easier to remember it when you're trying to draw it out of your brain, you know? And when we memorize, I'll have a method for that, but when we memorize, it's always more difficult to just memorize a list of events than it is to memorize 3 bigger concepts instead of, like, you know, in the first 8 bars, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 chordal events, right? But there's really only 3 things that are happening. And there's a lot of different varieties of ways to make those 3 things make sense to you. So we'll talk about that. But one of the things that helps is, how do we get back to the beginning of the song after the first 8? In this case, it's the 3 and the 6, A minor to D7, which lead us back to the 2 chord, right? So you can log that away in your gray matter, that if a tune starts on 2, the turnaround to get back to it is probably 3 and 6. Luke, did you have something?
Yeah, I had just some questions. Someone was asked if this will be available for replay, and yes, there's a 7-day replay on this. If you go to the link that brought you here, so that's timlerch.com/livestream, this will be there for 7 days. But wait, there's more.
Oh my gosh, here it is.
Here it is. So it will be available in perpetuity in this funky new place that I'm privileged to have worked with Tim on. And I'm about to show you this, guys. You will be the first people ever to see this. I'm getting butterflies. Okay.
And
So
by the way, it's not provocative pictures of me, okay? Nobody's ever seen that either, but it's not that.
So this is Tim's new website, timsguitarworkshop.com, that we've been working on. That is now officially live, and this will be where you can watch this kind of video forever. On this website, though, there's some incredibly cool things, and if you can permit me to just give you guys a little tour for 2 minutes, because we are very excited. So timsguitarworkshop.com is the home of some exclusive jazz and blues education from Tim. as well as tons of transcriptions, tons of talks, behind the scenes interviews, performances, live streams, exclusive. We built a community, which I just found out is my partner sells at her work, and she's angry that I didn't buy from her. But it's all right. We built our own one. So yeah, we've launched this website, which is now live, and we've launched this founding members sign up. So if you go there and you're one of the first few people to sign up, we've got a much lower price than normal. It's $16.99 because we're in this phase where we really want to get as many people in to get some feedback and grow and see what people want. Because we're doing all these different things. We've got these play-alongs where Tim comps for you. We've got these deep dives on tunes. And we've integrated Sound Slice. So we've got these cool like interactive players. So like, I don't know if you guys have used Sound Slice before. It's awesome. And we're even doing this thing called YouTube Plus. So if you're a fan of Tim's YouTube lessons, we're going through his back catalog and adding tabs to them. So that is.
Oh, you should say, because tabs is a
sorry,
word. Notation and tablature.
Notation and tablature in an interactive format where you can click and it'll take you to where you want to be in the video. So it's incredibly exciting. It's our new little baby that we just wanted to tell you about. And it's full of licks, transcriptions, and deep dives and new things. And it would be amazing if you could check it out and let us know how we can continue to make it better and how we can continue to spread Tim's teaching. Okay.
And then one more thing, Luke, that I think is going to be needs to be said is that this isn't just a website with stuff on it. We're going to be doing 2 events per month. One is going to be a Song of the Month class like this, and another one is going to be a Q&A, live Q&A, and there will be new material always being put up. We have a team of people who are really working this, so I don't have to do it all myself, which has always been a big barrier for me. I just didn't have enough time. Like this last 2 weeks, I've had 8 gigs, and I just don't always have time to write everything out and do that stuff. So now we have people helping me, and so we can do a live stream, and then in a couple of days after the live stream, we can have some important things transcribed and posted along with the video. So it's going to be a live thing. It's a real. My idea is that it's a community of people who like this thing. We like these old songs. We like jazz and blues. We like something that may not be so accessible in everyday life. You certainly aren't going to see it, this kind of material on TV at prime time or anything. So we create our own community where we can support each other. We can have a place to play for each other, get feedback from myself and from each other. And I just hope that it will be a seamless version of what I had hoped that some of my earlier attempts had been, to create a place where you can learn and get community, get support, and ultimately benefit yourself and others in this world of this music that we love. So that's my spiel on that.
And one other thing is Tim's been very generous. If you've ever bought his transcriptions or wanted to buy one of his transcriptions, the library has been integrated into the website as well. So you can explore all of the stuff from Tim's store there too, instead of having to buy them individually. If you're a member, you get access to all of that stuff. Okay, back to you, to the standard.
Okay, good. Now we're back after our commercial break. Show of hands, anybody who finds that what we just talked about somewhat intriguing and may be interested in that? Good. Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so When Sunny Gets Blue, the next thing after we've done this sort of familiarizing ourselves and whatnot is we start to learn the basics. We learn the basic changes, learn how to play them in time. Always try to play them in time as soon as you can, okay? Because time, being able to play a song in time is maybe one of the most elusive things. So if you start early with playing it in time, even if it's very slow, you'll improve your ability to do that, and you'll also hear the tune in a way that makes more sense to you. Okay, so if you play through it, just easy, 2 beats each. It doesn't matter if you just memorize the chord shapes or read them and don't memorize them, but really try to play in time. If there's anything on the chart that you don't understand, what does it mean? Like, what is that F6 with A underneath it? What is that? Or D7 flat 9 in parentheses. What does that mean? If you don't know what that means, usually you can just play the basic thing. So F6 over A could just be a regular F chord. D7 flat 9 probably can just be a D7. So don't worry, don't get too stressed out about all of the extra stuff. Just get the basic song, because sometimes the basic stuff is the best stuff. You know, if you're playing with a singer and there's F with the A in the bass right there, up there, and gentleman with on the top row got it right. If you're playing with a singer and you're playing all kinds of wild stuff just because it's on the chart, it may not be the most appropriate thing for accompanying somebody. It might clash with the melody or something. So just learn the basic one, okay? Look at the form of the song. So if you're looking at this chart, and then when you listen to it, you'll notice that there's 8-bar sections in this song. It's a very standard A-A-B-A form. A means the first 8 bars, and then there's a repeat of the first 8 bars, usually with a second ending. Notice that the second ending is different chords than the first ending, because the first ending is sending you back to the top of the tune. The second ending is sending you onto the bridge. So the preparatory chord for getting back to the top is different than the preparatory chords that would send you to the bridge, okay? And then there's a bridge after the second ending. Maybe I don't need to say this, but usually what I tell people, because sometimes there's confusion, you play the first 8 bars, including the first ending. Then you go back to the top where the repeat sign is at the top. And then when you come back down again in bar 7, you skip over the first ending and you play the second ending, right? So you don't play the first ending the second time. You jump right over it and play. So it's another 8 bars, right, with a different last bar. Then on to the bridge. Usually, if a chart is good, there'll be some double lines that indicate, okay, we're done with that. Now we're going on to something a little new. Those double lines are on this chart. And interestingly enough, with this one, we have an 8-bar section that's the bridge, but oddly, and perhaps maybe not so oddly, it's in a different key than we were in before. So the second ending actually was a preparatory bar for changing keys. It was a modulation. And this is a real modulation. Sometimes we have non-diatonic chords or major 7th chords that, you know, get in the mix that, you know, some systems of thought would say, oh, you've changed keys. Sometimes that's true, sometimes it's not. But in this case, it's a true modulation to the 6 major. And we play through the first 4 bars in that key of D, and then we play briefly in the key of C, and then we wind our way back to the key of F to finish out the bridge. Then we would go back to the top, play the 8 bars again. And on this chart, if you got it in front of you, there's a little coda sign, which is a circle with a cross in the middle of it. And that means now you jump down to that thing at the bottom. It's just a third, basically it's a third ending. And it doesn't have to be exactly like this. It could be your own variation on it, because it's not an ending so much as it's just a third turnaround to get you back to the top again. You could also use it as an ending as well. That's where it says DS al coda, little music talk here. DS stands for, I'm really bad with this, del signo, I think. It means you go to the sign, which if you look at the top of the chart, there's a little sort of backwards S with a slash. That's the sign. And then al coda means when you get to the coda, jump to the coda at the bottom of the page. When you see the coda sign, you jump to the bottom of the page. And my apologies if you're not looking at the chart right now while I talk about this stuff. Okay, but that is interesting and important. You can learn the song by ear But if somebody throws an unfamiliar chart in front of you, and even if it's pretty much what you know, there might be arrangement aspects that are built into what I call the roadmap. And so understanding a little bit about how to read a chart and what the roadmap is valuable, because you never know what situation you're going to find yourself in. And if I put a chart in front of somebody, I expect that they're going to follow the roadmap, because that's my brief explanation of the arrangement. And so if we haven't had a chance to rehearse and they follow the arrangement, we'll probably be good. All right. Next thing, we've played through the song with basic changes, and we can keep time. We've figured out any chords that we don't know. We've sourced and found playable versions of them for ourselves. And I say at this point, keep them very simple. Like four chord forms probably will get you through. A major chord, major seventh chord, a minor seventh chord, a dominant seventh chord, and a minor 7-flat-5 chord. If we have one of each of those, we can probably make it through the tune. And it'll probably be easier to remember and memorize if you keep it really simple, because the more complicated the thing you're trying to learn is, the more obscure it might become to your mind, okay? So now let's learn the melody. And I'm a big proponent of learning the melody intervallically in relationship to the chord of the moment. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. That's the first bar. There's a pickup, which is the fifth of the key. That's a good thing to know. Sorry. And then there's a melody that goes. That's the 9, the 1, and the 9 of the chord of the moment, G minor. So G minor 9. It's really good to know that, because if I change keys now, because a singer wants me to, I still know the melody is the 9 and the 1 and the 9 over that first chord, rather than a note name that would change with the transposition. It wouldn't be the same. So if it's A and G here, and I change the key to the key of G, and it's going to be B and A for the next one. But if I know that it's 9-1-9, it's that in every key. Okay? So that's a really important message about learning things intervallically. Okay? So we have 9-1-9-1. One of the C7 is C. And then another one repeated, and then we move to a new chord, but we still have 9-1-5-flat-3. 9-1-5-flat-3. Now, whatever key I put that in, it's going to be those numbers. 9-1-5-flat-3. And then the new chord, 13-5. Okay? Now, I may be jumping to this number thing a little quick, because most of you would probably just want to learn the melody by playing the melody. But eventually, you're going to want to understand how the notes of the melody relate to the chord of the moment. Now, someone might say, well, I prefer to learn the melody notes as they relate to the key. And that's not a bad way to go, except in this particular case, there's some places where we're not leaving the key, but we're using non-diatonic information briefly to get some color, a bluesy sound, because this song has an inherent bluesy quality. And so either way is fine. I prefer and recommend learning the melody intervallically as it relates to the chord of the moment rather than just the key. But I've had many discussions with people about this, and if you're already doing it successfully by learning it in relationship to the key, don't think I'm telling you you've done it wrong. It's just a different way. And the way I find it most helpful for transposition and for general playability is to learn melodies as they relate to the chord of the moment, because I've already learned the chord of the moment, and I want to make sure my melody is somehow relating to that. Okay? Then we say rest. That's very important. The hardest note to play is the one you don't play. So on this chart, there's a beat of rest. Do-ba-da-ba, oh, that's right, sorry. Ba-ba-dee-da-dum. da. So we have this little descending scale part. And you could say, okay, that starts on the third of the key and comes down the scale. That's a nice way to do it too. If once you find the place where the melody starts, you can usually find the rest of the phrase. And then 5, 1, 5. And then I don't even call that E, even though it's a whole note. I don't even really think about it in how it relates to the D7 chord, but it's the 9 of the D7 chord. You can have it there. Now here's a little interesting thing. We have a chord that isn't in the key. It's B minor 7 flat 5. But the melody really lives right around the chord. Right? Flat 3, flat 5, flat 6, flat 5. Then the next chord also lives right around the chord. Right? So I'm not going to go through the whole melody like that, but that's my method. Is you can learn the melody, learn to sing it. When you go to play it, be aware of how it relates to the chord of the moment. Maybe not in the first few times you try and play through it. If you read music, you'll probably be able to play through it easily. If you don't read music, you might have to have a little bit of a struggle and do it by ear or figure out the notes very slowly. But once you get it, where you can actually play the melody, you eventually want to get it so you know how the melody relates to the chord of the moment. Okay, and then you continue that. Now, a little preach about how much to do and how long it should take. I get bugged whenever I see somebody maybe in my realm of a YouTube personality who's teaching on YouTube claim that they're going to teach you how to do something the fastest way. Now, what if somebody had a YouTube video and they said that they're going to teach you how to make love to your wife as fast as possible? Right? You probably wouldn't really buy that video. I mean, maybe somebody would, but it's not, it's kind of a false premise that we want to do this stuff fast, that we want to learn quickly, and that we want to be efficient. And I say more so, we do a lot of this work because we love it, because it gives us joy, because it makes us happy, because we love the process and it's exciting to learn a new song. We're curious. And that might be something you could spend a month or 2 months or a whole year on. Because if you're enjoying it, if you're really in it, then the value is in the doing of it, not the result of it. Right? So if you learn something fast, I bet you're going to forget it fast as well. That's important. So we'll make a little t-shirt that says, learn it fast, forget it faster. Right? So let's talk about this whole business of learning and not forgetting. So take your time with the process. Don't be in a hurry. You can have 2 or 3 tunes at once going on, but try not to do too much more than that, because then you're going to get, you'll have a little confusion based on, oh, was that this tune or was that tune, right? But it's good to have a few, like a brand new one, a couple that are a few weeks old, maybe a few that you really have and you want to polish. It's good to have it like that. It keeps you interested. If you go to the gym, supposedly, I've never been to one, but if you go to the gym, they have this thing that they do where they don't say, okay, what do you want? Oh, I want my bicep to be bigger. Okay, come over to the bicep machine and do this for 30 days. They don't do that, right? What they do is they say, okay, well, you'll get big biceps if you do these 20 things on a circuit. And there is actually a principle that I read about called muscle confusion, which is a little bit more like what originally our bodies developed by doing many, many different kinds of things so that everything gets stronger together instead of in isolation. So when we're learning music, that's a very good thing to remember, is that all the things you learn about, if you're playing scales for a half an hour and then you're playing arpeggios, then you're spending 25 minutes learning When Sunny Gets Blue, and then you're going to play some blues. All of that stuff benefits you in all different ways, some of which you don't even really know, about. It's not conscious. So allow yourself to stay enthusiastic about your learning. Curiosity is really wonderful. Joy is really important. Boredom is really not good. Boredom comes when we're not getting something quick enough, or we actually are working on something that we don't love. Right? You're not going to get bored staring into the eyes of your grandchild. Never. Right? So you treat this music like staring into the eyes of your grandchild, and you'll be safe. Okay? Everything will be all right if you try that way. Right? So, little bits learned correctly, accurately, slowly, and then repeated. Okay? So if we're learning the melody, we want to learn the first phrase. That's got a little bit of a funny fingering, so we want to make sure we know it correctly. And maybe we want to experiment with a few different fingerings. Whoop, I don't want to do that. Okay, I want to do that. I don't want to practice mistakes. So that's why you have to learn it correctly. And learn it little bits, and then put the bits together in a cumulative fashion. So you learn the first 2 bars, then you learn the second 2 bars, and you put them both together and you got 4 bars. And you try to make sure that you don't try and grind through the whole tune making a bunch of mistakes, because guess what? Your brain and your fingers are really charming. If you learn mistakes, if you play mistakes, you're learning mistakes. You're basically teaching yourself how to play it wrong if you play mistakes. So take your time and make sure you're learning it correctly. And if it takes a long time, that's fine, as long as you've gotten it clear. Let it change as it needs to change. So a fingering that you choose off the very beginning may be flexible. You have to be flexible enough to maybe modify that because something else is coming later and it sets you up for success. All these kinds of things are important. Let's talk about some specific things now. When I'm looking at this tune, if it's a tune I've never played before, let's say we're learning just the chords. Okay, if you have a guitar in your hand and the chart in front of you, try this. So we're going to look at the chart and we're going to play the first 4 bars in time, slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now, if I did that okay, immediately I want to turn away, not look at the page, and try and play it again without looking. Whoops, already I made a mistake. Shoot. Look. Okay, not going to look anymore. I found out what my mistake was. Okay, it starts on 2. Tell myself it starts on 2. Remember. Okay, now we go. Don't look. Oh, funny chord. That's the funny one. 4 minor. Got to know about that. Then here's that F over A. Oh, it goes to 2 there. And then 3 and 6. Okay. I did it okay. I didn't look at the page, and it came out of my brain and my fingers. Here's my theory. I don't know how scientific this is, but it seems logical to me. You don't remember things when you put them in. You remember things when you drag them out. What creates memory in this realm of playing music is once you put it in, you got to pull it out. Now, the reason I think that's true is I would have played music shows where the music was not so interesting and I was just showing up to the gig and reading the book down. I could play that show for a year and never memorize that music because I wasn't being required to. So reading something over and over and over does not create memories. It doesn't help you to memorize something. So what you have to do is you have to look at it just enough to get it, and then what I call pulling it out of your brain. It goes in just fine when you look. You know, we all have a very photogenic memory, but when you pull it out is when you actually remember it. Creates an event in your mind. The other thing that creates memories is trauma. So I know that if I'm on a bandstand and somebody calls a tune and I don't know it, or I only know it a little bit, or I don't know the bridge or something like that, and I say, okay, go. And they go, and I listen and I learn on the spot, and I watch the bass player's hands, or I listen real hard and I catch the thing I didn't know or whatever. I'll never forget that, because it happened. There's an experience, a slightly traumatic experience associated with the event of learning. Right? So these are some mind games that I've noticed over the time. So a short frame, 4 bars is probably even too much, but let's say nothing more than 4 bars. The reason we want to do 4 bars is because it's a whole idea. Bo dee dum, babo doo dee do, babo doo 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 dee dum. That's a whole phrase. And that's good to learn things that way as well. Because then what happens? Boo ba da boo dee ba da da boo ba da do dee do da da boo ba da do dee do dee dum. That's the next thing. It's a little more complicated. You might want to do it 2 bars at a time, right? But make sure you look at it. Boo ba da boo dee do da da. What's the melody? Oh, I had the melody wrong. Boo da da do dee do da da do da da do dee do da. Oops. Okay, what's happening there? Oh my gosh, it's going down chromatically. Boo ba da do dee do da do da da do dee do da. There's a couple of other chords in the way there, but it's basically this. And then one more. So that means there's a whole chunk of material there that's not so hard to remember, because all I have to remember is one thing. Get to the B and go down chromatically. Right? Or get to sharp 4 and go down chromatically. Turns out that thing there, sharp 4 and then chromatically down, is a really, really common ending, intro, turnaround. Happens all the time. So I look at that and I say, oh, I know that. I learned that in Green Dolphin Street last month or whatever, you know? So we want to benefit from all of the other things that we've learned, and looking at things intervallically can really help us see the concept in a logical way rather than just a sort of alphabet soup kind of way. Okay? So the next thing that has to happen, and this is sort of a good place to wrap up with all of this business, is the next thing that has to happen after you've learned little bits and familiarized yourself with the song, learn how to hum it, learn the melody, learn the basic changes, memorized it to some extent so that you can play it at least in this way, is to do the repetitions necessary. Okay? You don't just go to the gym and do 1 bench press and call it, well, maybe you do call it a day after 1 bench press. But anyway, you got to keep doing it. You got to exercise. You don't just brush your teeth once a week. At least I don't. Right? It's one of those things you have to do all the time to stay healthy. Right? So when you learn a tune, you put all this energy into learning it first. And then often what happens is there's an acquisitive mindset that says, oh, I got that. I'm going to get something else now. That's a great method. I learned that tune in 25 minutes. Tim is a genius. I'm going to do it now to this other 3 or 4 tunes. And then pretty soon you're overloaded. You become a glutton and you haven't done the work. So learn one thing and then do the work. The work is to repeat it over and over and over the way you might play a song you love. It's not drudgery. It's just play the song. You know, play it in a different key. Try and push yourself. Do all the things. Play along with the recordings that you like. Work it, right? Work it and work it. Make the most out of the energy that you put into the tune. And then when you get it stable where you can pretty much play it, maybe not at the level that you want to play it at, but you can remember how it goes. You can make your way through, remember the key of the bridge, and I know how to get there and all that stuff. Then you can add a new tune once you've got sort of stable on that one. And then it'll be in sort of the marching toward perfection, if there is such a thing, and something new can come along and you can start the process over again. And you might be, I always use this metaphor, like on the Ed Sullivan Show, there'd be the vaudevillian that would come out and they'd spin a plate and put it up on the top of a tall dowel, and it would be they'd twiddle it and the plate would spin, and then they do one more and one more and one more and one more. And by the time they got down to like the sixth plate, they'd have to run back to the first plate and spin it. And learning songs, learning repertoire is a little bit like that. You know, you get one stable, add another one, and when you need to, you run back and you spend time with the newest one. But you keep it all going. You kind of keep it all the plates up on all of the sticks, as I say. Okay? I think right now is a good time maybe to pause and see if there's another direction that we can take. I hope that was helpful, guys. And you know, if you find it helpful, we're going to have a song of the month is one of the sort of premises for the new website, and a question and answer about 2 weeks later, so you can get started on a song and then be able to ask questions about it later, and really benefit from the community and from my kind of experience and stuff. So that's our plan. And anyway, Luke, you talk now.
Yes, I will talk. Okay, I just got stared down by a fox in the garden. He
Oh
was
my gosh, really?
Yeah. So there's a couple of questions. Someone's first asked, what are your thoughts on practicing in all keys? So maybe when you're learning a song, doing it every day in a different key or something like that.
Okay. This is really big in academia, in music schools, and some teachers are very big on this. And I'm not sure it's the best use of your time. I know that's controversial, but I can do it. I can play this song in all 12 keys, but it's because I know the song, I know how it's put together, and in the moment of being asked to play it in a different key, I have a methodology for being able to do that. Not because I memorized it in all the keys, but also the reality is I've never been asked to play this in any more than 2 or 3 keys, right? So at a certain point, spending a whole bunch of time grinding through and trying to play everything in all 12 keys when playing them in 3 or 4 keys can be just as helpful is, I think, something to consider. None of you guys, I don't see everybody, but I wouldn't say everybody is going to be trying to get a degree in music education or music performance from a music academy. And going out and playing in theater jobs and sight reading fly shit and making studio recordings and all that. It's, we're just not. You guys aren't here for that. You guys are here so you can play some pretty songs and accompany somebody and play with your friends on the weekends and all that. I may be wrong about that, but all this business about learning everything in 12 keys, I think what it does is it kind of helps the teacher. They give you one little thing and then they say, okay, go away for a month and learn it in all 12 keys and then come back. It's a little bit easier to teach that way because it just, you don't have to really, you just say, okay, do it. So I think it's helpful. If you're the kind of person that benefits from that kind of deep dive, do it and see how it works for you. And if it works, great. I'm not going to tell you not to do it. But my guess is you could get easily bored, or you could get easily distracted, or you can get easily discouraged by thinking that the only way to really know something is to be able to play it in all 12 keys, and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, learn it in the first key. Learn it in the first key. If you can do that, then whatever you do after that, fine with me.
Awesome. Quick one here. Someone's asked, how many tunes do you know?
Oh, a lot.
Well,
Because you got to figure, I just turned 65 and I've been playing gigs since I was 14. And at the beginning, I didn't know anything. And I had to learn quick. And it seems like all the tunes I learned in the first 5 years are still in there. And then maybe some of the ones I've learned more recently are a little bit less, they don't stick as well, but I try my best. And then if you add, years and years of playing in, old school R&B bands and country bands and duos with singers. I mean, it's a ridiculous number. But then the other question is, how can you pull it out, and how much do you rely on sheer memory, right? And how much do you rely on logic and your ear? right? So the goal is to know every song as well as you know a blues, right? So if I'm playing a blues, nowhere in this performance am I going to ask myself, oh, where does it go now? I'm not ever going to wonder, oh shit, where does it go after the 2? Oh yeah, the 5. I'm never going to have to worry about that because I know that's that thing, like as the marrow in my bones, right? And I hear it. So the where I'm at now tells me where I'm going next, right? So in fact, memorizing tunes is not as ideal as knowing a tune. Knowing it. What does it sound like? What's the sound that's coming next, and how do I play it? And that's the long game. You're not going to get that in a couple of weeks, right? But that's the deal about knowing a lot of tunes. And, maybe you don't know every stinking bit, but, where does it go on the bridge? You just shout to the bass player, where's it go on the bridge? Oh, yeah, okay.
One question just on the tune we were looking at today. James has asked, do you ever think of the B flat minor as a G minor 7 flat 5? Can you think of which specific one he's talking about? Is there any one?
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, sometimes that chord could be... Yeah. The only problem with that is if you do think of it as a G minor 7 flat 5, which B flat minor 6 and G minor 7 flat 5 are the same chord, but the B flat minor 7 to E7 gives you two things. It gives you inner movement and it gives you different bass notes than just hanging on the G. So if you benefit from that, hearing that movement, I think those are the original changes. But you could, if you're soloing over this and you find it easier to think, oh, it's just minor 7 to minor 7 flat 5, that's fine. It's all good. There's so many different ways to understand harmony. There's so many different ways to see it. All the different ways are good, unless it creates confusion. But I think of that as 4 minor to flat 7 dominant, which is one of four main cadences which lead you back to 1. So for me, it's like, okay, 2, 5, 1, 4 dominant to 1, flat 2 to 1, and 4 minor to flat 7 dominant to 1. Those are the 4 main cadences that we see over and over and over and over. And it's one of those. So I just sort of say, okay, that's the one. That's 4 minor, and it's doing its thing. And it's got a sound, I love that sound. Some people call it a backdoor 2-5. I don't love that name, but if it's a name that makes sense to you, it's fine.
Yeah, I remember being taught that in jazz uni.
Yeah,
Backdoor
yeah.
cadence.
Backdoor 2-5 always seems a little bit, I don't know, it seems a little bit, I don't know. It's all right. It makes sense to you. It's all you need. That's all you need. Is it needs to make sense. You're not trying to pass a theory test here. You're just trying to have it make sense to you.
Yeah. I'll answer a couple of these questions on the website and give one to you as well. Someone's just asked about the pricing. We're doing that for the first 500 members only. So it's not a time sensitive thing in that sense. You don't have to rush. There'll be some time to grab that introductory deal.
Let's hope it's not. We never get to 500, and that ends up being the price forever. No, that would be fine too, actually, if you ask me.
Someone else has asked, what's the difference between this and your TrueFire membership?
Oh, my TrueFire membership for my what I call the solo guitar sensei. So something I'm trying to figure out is that the problem that I have with that is that I have to generate all of the material myself, and I just don't have time to do it. So what's happening is the TrueFire channel, the Solo Guitar Sensei, is there. It will stay there, at least until something makes it change. The monthly subscription is $10, and yet I'm not really participating in it as much, and I probably won't be adding a whole lot of new material. But the good news is there's already a lifetime's worth of material on the site that you could look into and benefit from. So, without shooting us in the foot for this new project, I think that project is still good. It's still worthwhile, and it's still you could still benefit from it if it fits your budget better. That's fine. Oh, and not as much notation by a mile. It's most of the material on that site is self-generated. These grid pages, the Ted Green style grid pages, which some people like and some people hate. And so, I see James is one of the people that doesn't like them. But James, you're going to be happy with the new site because it's dots. It's like so many dots. You get all the dots you want, baby. Anyway, so that's the big difference. And my Patreon page, I think the Patreon page is probably going to end its life here sometime very soon because I don't really like the format of it. It's changing and changing and changing all the time, and they do stuff that without asking me. So I think I'm going to dissolve the Patreon page and encourage those people who are on it to come over here to Tim's workshop.
Fantastic. And I is the solo jazz guitar center, does that have any blues stuff or?
A little bit, but not really much. It's mostly dedicated to solo guitar versions of standard songs. And like Luke said earlier, all that stuff is going to be on this new site as well. So so I think it'll be good.
Yeah, so we've also got 2 to 3 lessons going up every week for the next couple of months at least.
Yeah, because there's a backlog.
We've got a backlog, and we're backlogging Sound Slice as well. So it's the easiest and most interactive way to learn. So on that note of learning jazz standards and how many, do you know, someone's asked for a beginner who wants to learn jazz, what are the 10 standards they should start with? I know you love this question. I asked you this a week ago.
Luke asked me this question. He said, "Could you write a list of songs that I think that people should know?" And I did it, and it was 300 songs.
He gave me 3 A4 pages, and it was dual columns in each one.
Hey, Luke, I have a question. I scroll. It's a technical question. I scrolled over on my Zoom to page 4 of 4 so I could see everybody else who was in here.
But you can't see me.
Now I can't. I don't know how to get back. There's no other tab on. Oh, shoot. Never mind. I found it. There we go. Now I know. Okay. I was dumb. Okay. So 10 standards. I think first at least one blues melody with the jazz blues changes would be good, and because then you're going to learn something that you could apply to many songs. I think one rhythm changes type chord progression song, like I Got Rhythm, or any number of bebop heads that have rhythm changes. And then a standard song like maybe Have You Met Miss Jones, or something a little simpler that also has something like rhythm changes, but it's got a different kind of bridge. Okay? Something that lives in the realm of 4 to 4 minor, like Just Friends, or I Can't Believe that You're in Love with Me, or any number of songs that start on 4 and go to 4 minor. Just Friends is a good example. Just friends, just friends, lovers no more. Then it goes to 1, still friends, but not like before. Okay, so there's a bunch of songs like that, and that's what I'm trying to describe are archetypes that if you learn all the things you are, for instance, that should be on the list as well, then you've learned a big chunk of hundreds of songs. Because the cycle that starts all the things you are, 6, 2, 5, 1, 4, is in millions of songs, hundreds of songs at least. And so if you learn that and you can recognize it, then when you see a song that's got it, You can learn a whole chunk of the song in one view, right? Especially if you're good with numbers, if you have the numbers together. Okay? Now, then some minor songs. So one of the songs that people learn early on is Blue Bossa, because it's got a minor section and then a major section. I like Yesterdays. I like Softly as in a Morning Sunrise. All of these tunes are minor tunes that have a little major bridge. Summertime is a good one to learn for sort of a mostly pure minor kind of song. So you want to make sure you're not just learning the same song over and over again. So if all 10 of your songs have the same basic archetype, you wouldn't have a broad enough list. So we want to make sure that the 10 songs that populate the archetype list are uniquely different from each other, so that you can start to recognize that learning these 10 songs buys you another 100 each. Right? Now, these other 100 might not be identical. They probably won't be identical. They might have a different bridge, or they might have be in a different key, so you don't recognize it. All sorts of things can happen. But eventually, someone I'll say, hey, do you want to play I Want to Talk About You? And he says, oh, I don't know, I want to talk about you. And they say, oh, it's just the same as Misty. Okay. Misty would be a good one too, because that goes to 4 and 4 minor, right? So rather than give you a hard list of 10, I would say, pick songs and you like. And then if you have some gaps in this archetype list, a blues, a rhythm changes, a major rhythm changes with a bridge, a minor with a bridge, and maybe something that changes keys, like a lot of 2/5s, like How High the Moon would be good because it moves down. Something like I'll Remember April is very good because it has a little bit of major to minor going on right off the 1 chord. So those become archetypes, and then you want to make sure that you kind of have all the boxes ticked for learning those 10. And then you'll see other songs that you could say, oh, that's one of these. Or Cherokee would be a good one for the list, because it's very similar, for instance, to Back Home in Indiana. It's not identical, but it's very similar. And it's also something like a combination of rhythm changes and then one of those tunes that goes to 4 minor. So, that's a good one too, Cherokee. I think I might have gotten all the way up to 10. Next question.
The most common question, and the one that's been getting the most likes, is could you give us a brief introduction to how you might start learning how to play over these standards?
Okay, you mean improvise melodically?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, first thing, play the melody. Make sure you learn the melody. Okay, so we say, that's my interpretation of the melody. If I were playing this in a trio gig or something, I might play the melody a little bit like that. But then I might say, all of that I just did is really based on ornamenting the melody, right? Behind it is a little bit about what chord are we on right now. I can never get rid of that totally, but it's really based on the melody. So if I were to sing something like that, boo-ba, boo-bee-bee-doo-bee-dee-doo. Oh, sorry. Boo-da, boo-doom, booty dum. Bom bodaloo dee da doo dee dee. Baba doo bee dee. Baba doo bee dee do. Bo bo doo dee do do. Bo doo bo dee bo dee dee dee. Doo dee doo doo doo. Bo doo. Okay, so I'm making up a melody that's based on the melody. With my singing, I can't, you know, I don't know whether I'm singing, maybe I do, but I don't have like arpeggio fingerings or a lot of scale of the chord ideas going on. I'm just singing the melodies that I'm inventing in my brain, right? And that's a big part of it. That's why we need to listen to music a lot, the kind of music that we want to improvise like. You know, if you want to learn how to improvise like Sonny Rollins, you have to kind of really swim around with Sonny Rollins for a long time, you know. You have to dig him for a long time and, you know, beg, borrow, and steal and all that stuff so that you can develop a sense of what you want, right? But then, as that runs its course, there may be a time when I hear a sound, I don't know how to sing something over it that satisfies me. Then I might say, okay, let's do this as an exercise. Now what I'm doing there is I'm actually thinking of the chord of the moment, mostly using arpeggio shapes based on the chord and trying to make melodies out of those things. If I just play it dry, it sounds something like this. Usually when somebody tries that, because they were told in music school or in a book or whatever to do that, they immediately say, well, it doesn't sound like music. It doesn't sound like a cool solo. It just sounds like an exercise. And that's because they aren't investing, they're putting the cart before the horse a little bit, in that those arpeggios really are the sound of the chord, but they don't have any inherent melodic quality to them. So what you need to do is you need to really learn how to make a melody. How do you learn how to make a melody? You learn melodies. So the more songs you learn, the more melodies you learn, the more bebop heads you learn, the more of a vocabulary and in the realm of sound that you're going to have in your head. And so when you go to improvise, you'll have all that stuff. Even if you're still thinking of the arpeggios of the chords of the moment, you'll have a sense of how to make those things into melodies. And then, you know, the long, lifelong row to hoe. But the question is, how would you start doing that? I think I answered that. Think of like Louis Armstrong. Louis Armstrong is my guiding principle for how to improvise. Is he started with the melody always. You know, he didn't hear him run changes. What was that?
Sorry, someone specifically asked. They said they think Chet Baker is someone who's retained the melody and plays beautifully over the changes.
Yep.
Is there anything that you can think of specifically to him that he might do differently that they could draw inspiration from?
Oh, wait a minute. You want me to tell Chet Baker what to do differently?
No.
Oh.
What do you think is the secret
don't
to
use
guys like
heroin. No, I'm sorry. Ask that question again. It's too late for me to give Chet that advice. Sorry.
So, of all the jazz improvisers I've listened to, Chet Baker retains the melody the most during his improvisation. What does he do differently?
From who?
So he's comparing him to everyone else. He thinks,
okay, to everybody else or something.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Chet has the benefit of being a guy who could sing and a guy who had no idea, perhaps even the names of the notes that he was playing or the names of the chords. Apparently, he was completely an ear player. You know, I don't think he ever read a chart. He didn't play in a big band. He was always just doing his thing. He had a beautiful ear, and he knew how to hear the chords eventually, right? But what I did at the beginning The melody is right in there the whole way. If you were singing "When Sunny Gets Blue," I could have played that, what I just played now, as a counterpoint to "When Sunny Gets Blue," right? And that's the trick, is to learn the melody really well, internalize it, and then run up to notes and put the melody in and embellish it. So if you say, right, I just went ba 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 doo ba doo boo dee boo be dum, right? I made a little run in the key up to the note I was searching for, and then here's the next note. That's the melody I might play. Right? And you just sort of dance around it. Now you can have a knowledge of, for instance, arpeggios that will help you with that. But you can't only rely on the arpeggios, because then it'll sound like this. And that's not where Chet Baker is coming from, that's for sure.
That's awesome.
She tended to play short phrases too. Not these big, long, melismas of notes.
That was our first assignment at Jazz Uni. We had to learn how to sing, and then a Chet Baker solo. At the end of the year, you were assessed on being able to write it out in all 12 keys and sing it.
Oh, wonderful.
So, yeah. This is just kind of a cool thing that people have been asking all these questions on different topics. That's one thing I want to stress about the new website, is that there's a huge community factor, and we will be looking at taking requests and taking suggestions.
Absolutely, yeah.
Part of why we're onboarding people as soon as possible, so that we can follow where you guys want to go. So I'm thinking after this, we should probably do how to interpret the melody video course.
Yeah, and we're going to have this song of the month thing, and we want to have we want people to let us know what song they're interested in, so we can try and address them. And have my biggest problem with creating content is I think, God, what am I going to do now? But if I got a list of assignments, someone says, oh, so-and-so wants this, so-and-so wants that, I'm happy to do it. It's the hard part is thinking of what to do. So if we can load it up, then we'll be all right. And the Q&A part is going to be, I have a feeling that what'll happen is the group will be smaller, because on any given time not everybody can make it. We'll get to know each other. I will have heard you play. You will have heard me play. Maybe some of you have heard each other play, and we can really, see it as a community of people and have some knowledge of who's in it, and really, focus on what's going to be most helpful, instead of just sort of broadcasting to the anonymous, guitar owning masses.
That's it. We've built a community where we can actually message each other as well.
Yeah.
Which I hope we don't have to take away. I hope we can trust you all.
Right. We're going to have some rules.
Yeah.
No meanies.
Yeah. So we're really looking forward to that. I'm trying to think of a nice question to end on while we have 5 minutes left. So
find a good question, and I'll give you a good 5 minutes, man. I'm good for a solid 5 minutes any day.
Okay, I've got a question here. I'll preface it though. One of the things that's upcoming on the website is that transcription from the lesson you did on the last words of scales and modes.
Oh, okay.
You could talk a little bit about that. So the question here is, given that all the notes of a particular mode are the same as in the Ionian mode, what exactly determines that you're playing one mode over another? Can you give an example of why one line would be heard as D Dorian and another as C major?
Yeah, that's the big confusion, and that's why using modes to understand how to play over tonal music isn't really very helpful. Okay, so I'm going to back up just a little bit. If I'm playing, we're not going to use When Sunny Gets Blue, because there could be a case for the bar 2 to be thought of in modal terms. But for instance, sometimes you will hear that over the 2 chord play the Dorian mode, over the 5 chord play the Mixolydian mode, over the 1 chord, play the Ionian mode, and then over the 6 dominant, play the yada yada mode. And that is completely useless. Because guess what? The D Dorian mode has 7 notes in it. The G7 mode, the G Mixolydian mode has 7 notes in it. The C major 7 mode, the Ionian mode, has 7 notes in it. And guess what? They're all the same notes, right? And it's like, oh, I got an idea. Let's make a bologna sandwich, and then we're going to cut the bologna in 3 pieces, and we're going to call the bologna sandwich that we make with the 3 pieces in a different order, a different sandwich. Something like that. It's just not useful. Now, what is useful is when you have either a non-diatonic chord in the middle of a mostly diatonic song. We want to be able to identify the source material in the form of a scale for that chord. That's very good, but it happens, of those 4 chords that I just played, it only happened for one of them, right? And then, not to mention the fact that the modal, the Dorian mode and the Mixolydian mode and the Ionian mode aren't the very most interesting sounds anyway, and your ear can take care of those sounds just fine, right? Or the other reason that modes are important to learn is that there's the thing called modal music, where the song is written utilizing modes that are parallel to each other, or it's not functional harmony. All right, so here's an example of a modal song. New bossa nova, just for you guys. Okay, what I just did was I went from A minor and a little melody on a Dorian mode, and then I moved up a minor third to a new minor 7th chord that wasn't related to the first chord at all. It's a parallel movement, and I played a little melody with the Dorian mode over that one. And that's a completely legitimate way of writing, and many years, at least a decade of music in jazz was written primarily like that, because people were interested in writing those kinds of songs. So then it's very helpful to know that Dorian mode is a thing unto itself, and it gives you the sound of a minor 7th chord. So the question was, how do I know the difference between a Dorian and a Mixolydian or whatever C major scale? Well, the easy answer is you don't need to know. If it's a tonal song with a chord progression that has functional harmony, you just have to pick a few little places to play some, maybe tensions or whatever to make it all sound interesting. But the general thing is in a key. And so if your song is in a key, one key for many bars, you don't need to dice it up into modes. But if you're playing a song that actually has a modal character, you need to understand how to express those modes. And a big mistake is that people learn modes they're told by their teachers, okay, what you do to learn the modes, which is a stupid thing to say anyway, because there's more than you can even imagine, is you take a major scale and then you start it on a different note. Right? So C major scale starting on the 2nd note is D Dorian. But that's really not true, because D Dorian is a thing unto itself. It's a harmonic world unto itself. D Dorian is tonic chord is D minor, and there won't necessarily be 2-5-1s involved. It might just be D minor and various inversions of D minor, or maybe some ancillary other diatonically related chords. But it really is a different kind of music that we would use modes for. And then usually in a modal song, the modes change from one portion of the song, maybe 4 bars or 8 bars. Then you get a new mode. It might be unrelated to the first one, except by the quality. So maybe 2 Dorian modes in a row, but they're from different roots. Now, the famous modal album is Kind of Blue by Miles Davis. And I'll give my little preach about that. So sometimes people think, well, modal music's got to be easier. It's only the same scale or mode for like 8 bars. That's going to be easier. I'm going to start there. I'm going to learn how to do that. But if in 1959, all the people on that record, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Cannonball Adderley, Jimmy Cobb, Bill Evans, Wynton Kelly for a hot minute, and Paul Chambers, they had been playing songs for 30 years at least in their careers already by that time. So they knew how to make a melody. So you give Miles, you know, he's playing over that D Dorian, and he goes. He knew how to make a melody. He didn't just go, right? And if you don't start learning how to play melodies, you're not going to know what really to do with modes very successfully anyway. So that's just my little preach about, you know, let's get our heads straight about what's going on, and to take a song that's basically what I call tonal and has functional harmony, and try and dice it up as every bar is a different mode, I think is pretty stupid. Because of the original question suggests that many of the chords in a chord progression that's in a key, the parent scale is going to be the same. So you're not getting anything by, the only thing you're getting is you're getting a preconceived notion that if you play a D minor 7, you have to start on a D note to play a scale over it. And then you realize, oh God, every time I see a D minor 7, I start on a D note. Wait a minute, modes are stupid. You know, and I don't think modes are stupid. I just think that learning how to play a standard that isn't modal by using modes in every bar is kind of dumb. So I'm sorry I gave you 7 minutes, Luke, because there's 7 notes in these modes.
Awesome.
Yay, so I finally solved the problem of modes. Now everybody's convinced.
We did have a couple of people on YouTube say they loved how you explained that. It's quite, it's a liberating thing. I think it's something that weighs on a lot of people. Just feeling inadequate because they haven't mastered their Locrian scale in every position and all.
Right,
keys.
and then there's also the other side of that is I learned my major scale, and then I learned how to dice it up into modes, and then I think I know my modes. The old story, someone comes in and they come to take a lesson, and then what they've done is they've learned modal fingerings by taking a major scale and starting on a different note. So they say, I know my modes. And I say, oh, wonderful, sing a Dorian mode. Can't do it. And maybe if they're really clever, they start singing a major scale, and then they just open their mouth on the second note, right? But modes aren't fingerings. They're not starting on a note. Like the D Dorian mode doesn't require you to start on a D note. That's the fingering, but that's not the mode. The mode is a sound world that's centered around D minor 7 as its tonal center that can go all over the place, but it doesn't go from place to place via functional harmony. That's the story on modes, and that's why it's probably not such a good idea to try and superimpose modal thinking over songs that are primarily functional harmony and are primarily in a key. And there are examples where it would be helpful, like the modes of the melodic minor scale, which is a subject we're going to talk about. Because they can be applied to one bar of music in a mostly tonal environment very, very well and get all kinds of wonderful sounds, that's another way to look at it, and that has value too. So that would be the big caveat to my rant about modes.
I'm just going to hit a couple of these final questions because some people are a bit confused about the introductory price.
Okay.
It's up there at $16.99. People are asking if that's just for the first month. No, if you sign up now, you're locked in as a founding member. That's our way of thanking you for obviously coming out and checking it out early and growing with us.
Thank you, Kathy. Bye-bye.
Someone else has asked Are there subtitles in Spanish? Not yet, but we're looking into it. We're trying to find a way to do that.
Yeah, we couldn't get rid of that closed caption. I imagine if we could get it back and we could put it in Spanish. I'd love
Yeah.
it, man. And wouldn't that be great? I mean, I know there are people all over the world who are interested in this stuff and they don't have good English skills. And wouldn't it be great if we could, figure that out?
We have to fire an email over to SoundSlice and have a look at their player.
Okay.
Prospect is there. We'll keep people posted. And just the final thing is people asking about level. We've put things up at all kinds of different levels. We've got a basics course dropping next week. It's going to be driven by the community as well. If you think there's subjects missing, you want something addressed at a certain level, that's exactly what we want it to be, the most complete resource it can be. So that's not something we want to stress worrying about because we want to listen to you. And then the final thing is someone's asked about tabs. Everything that we transcribe has tabs as well. So if you don't read notation, the tabs are there. There are some things that maybe aren't transcribed because we've thought they were either explained or played slow enough. But again, if you go, we would like tabs for this section of that video, there's the support feature there to go and mess with that. And we've got a team of people that are literally just sat there at the computer waiting for these requests to come through to go and
They're like,
tab stuff out.
okay, go.
Yeah. Was there anything else?
Shout out to Jeff, and whose last name still evades me. I know it. I know how to spell it, but maybe thank some of our team guys because I think that'd be great.
Amazing. So someone on YouTube has said that they liked your book, Melodic Blues Guitar Soloing. Jeff,
thank you,
is the guy that has done all the transcriptions for that and your other books, and one of your books, and Adam as well. Perlmutter did your second book. Those guys have come across and transcribed the website, along with another gentleman called Matt Sears, who is the SoundSlice integrator, and that's a tough job. So huge props to those guys, and our wonderful graphic designer. Let me see if I just let me throw this thing up again, just so you guys can have one last look, because I want to shout out our graphic designer who's done an amazing job of just making this look nice and beautiful. He had to go through so many pictures of Tim to find flattering angles. It was unreal.
I only have one flattering angle. What are you talking about?
Yes. So thank you very much to him, and thank you to everyone here who's tuned in for this call as well. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful Saturday evening. I know I got a message from someone in India. It's 3:45 in the morning.
Oh, I know my buddy Somalia. Hey, thanks for coming. He wakes up at 4 in the morning to take a lesson from me.
Oh, wow.
Good boy, good boy.
Yeah, so thank you to all of you guys for tuning in, and thank you for asking your questions. Again, if you come to the site and ask your questions there, we would thank you as well, because we really want to hear from you and we really want to make this about you. Tim, I'll let you.
All right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do something for the transcribers.
Okay.
So, when Sunny Gets Blue, improvised melodies. Then figure out how to transcribe that. There you go.
Well, there was one last question, which is, what are you doing with your mouth while you play? The humming?
I'm singing all my melodies.
Beautiful.
And breathing. That's the opening for the breathing.
Awesome.
My preferred opening. No, it's kind of a grumble, like I say. I'll do it a little bit more, so I say. And I also do this thing to keep notes from coming out. I buzz my lips kind of like a trumpet player. But anyway, it's kind of just me moaning and groaning, you know. And we do it because we got this mechanical thing here that doesn't have the same qualities as voice does. That you can play nonstop and the notes don't usually last very long and all that kind of stuff. So I sing when I play to try and get some humanness in it. And you're hearing it because the microphone's right there. If I'm on a gig, then I usually don't have a microphone. If I do have a microphone, I kind of turn away from it. And if I'm in the studio, sometimes I get myself in trouble by doing that because I've ruined more than one perfectly good solo by, the engineer says, "Oh, Tim, shut up." Anyway, that's what I'm doing. Trying to get connected. Another thing, this is a small thing, but it's important. If you're making a sound, it's very difficult to think words. And usually the words that we think are, "Oh my God, I'm sucking right now. Shit." And those are the worst words to think. So if you're humming the melodies, then you're not thinking of those damaging words.
Fantastic. Guys, just one final thank you. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for signing up. Tim, then there's a thank you owed to you. Thank you for sharing all this wisdom with us.
It's my pleasure.
We look forward to seeing more from you at your new website.
Yes. Soon, like before the end of September, we're going to have our first song of the month, right?
Yeah, well, there's our first member meetup is on.
Oh, that's right. We're going to meet and greet
28th.
first and get a plan.
Yeah.
We're going to get a plan for world domination.
Yeah.
Everybody's welcome. Even if
Right.
you use even if you like flat one strings, you're still welcome.
Even if you want to talk about modes, you're still
Yeah,
welcome.
right. Oh, we'll talk the hell out of modes. We're going to talk about it in a good way. All right.
Amazing.
Thank you, everybody. It's so good to see everybody. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.